76ers fall in overtime in a crazy game to the Rockets, 144 to 137. Let's break it down right here on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On 76ers. We're your host, Keith Pompey, 76ers beat writer. I'm Kayla Santiago, sideline reporter for the Delaware Blue Coats, Philadelphia 76ers, NBA G League affiliate. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts as well. You can also check us out on the free daily newsletter on LockedOnDaily.com. And this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. And Keith, this was a crazy game. 76ers lose the lead. They take it to OT. The Rockets come out on top. It was just craziness out there. Quentin Grimes going off, everything in between, but they do fall in the end.
Yeah, it was. It was a crazy game. At the end, I do believe that it's going to be a game that the 76ers are going to wake up tomorrow morning, or this morning rather, and they're going to be like, man, we really let it go. Because it was a great game from the standpoint of, the 24 3-pointers that they made was a season high. The 78 points that they scored in the first half was the most that the Houston Rockets have given up in a half. And the only reason why I'm saying that they're going to wake up and feel like they gave it away was because with 9 seconds left, they were up 3. They were in transition. Quentin Grimes has the ball. And he does that pass, and turns it away. And then what happens is he basically they go down. Jabari Smith gets fouled. He makes the first one. He misses the second one. And then they get the put back and they force overtime. And they score the first 6 points, talking about the Rockets, in overtime. And it's basically game over. But it was an exciting game. And Kayla, here's the thing. We're talking about guys, a makeshift version of the Sixers where they have these G Leaguers, basically. Quentin Grimes, Justin Edwards, and G Leaguers, right? Yep. And what happens? They play, in my opinion, one of the best overall performances by the Sixers this season. Now, they lost the game, but last time, people forget, they got boat raced by the Houston Rockets when it was the real Sixers.
And you saw a lot of young heart out there. And this is the funny thing when we talk about the 76ers wanting to tank and this whole tanking scenario and the situation that, at this point of the year, they're not going for that 10th spot for the play-in, but you're still looking at guys that are trying to push their way to be seen by other NBA teams, to be seen by the Philadelphia 76ers. These guys are not going to allow just an easy loss to go by them. We saw Quentin Grimes go off, but I do want to go backtrack a little bit to kind of what you alluded to. We're tied 131 heading into overtime. Nick Nurse seems like in the huddle makes the call to cause the foul, to send him to the line to hit 2. Of course, as you alluded to, 1 goes off. They get the putback. Did you like that call? What was the reaction? I know it was, Houston fans probably getting hype over it. But at the same time, I liked it in my end. I was saying, okay, that's a smart call. But if it doesn't go well, it's kind of a risk-reward situation there.
No, I like the call. I do. I like the call because, the reason is you think about it, you got Jalen Green with the ball in his hands or, about to try to get something done. And, Jalen Green was cooking. He had 30 points. He made 5 3-pointers. I mean, he shot 5 for 17. The percentage isn't that good. But when you think about what he was doing in the second half, you like it, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, it was just that, that the execution on the box out just wasn't there. But I like that call because, I didn't feel like that Jalen Green was on fire. Some of the other guys were, and, they were going to tie the game up. I just felt like that.
And Jabari Smith was doing his thing too. Clearly, of course, he goes to the charity stripe, but at the same time, he had one of his best games he's had all year. Just the consistency, what he's able to do, step up in the clutch. He finished with 30 points as well, hitting some big threes down the stretch in addition to overtime too. I liked how this group competed, though. You look at it and you say, in my mind, I'm sitting there and I'm analyzing this game and I'm saying, okay, well, the Rockets are not going to allow the 76ers to boat race them to the end. The Rockets are going to make some sort of comeback. They're a good team in the West. They're fighting for a top 3 spot right now, top 2 at that. I don't see them allowing the 76ers to come in and completely blow them out. That just wasn't the reality of the situation. But there was a real point where I thought the 76ers could win this game as well. And I want to talk about Quentin Grimes in overtime a little bit too before we kind of get to all the great things that he was able to do, because I don't want to talk negative on him. It reminded me of Tyler there, Keith. He took the 5 last shots. He only makes 2 of those shots, 2 big threes at that, but he misses the other 3. It seemed like a hero ball situation there at the end for Quentin Grimes. Now, he was the hot hand, don't get me wrong, but he was trying to do everything to an extent. It hurt them a little bit there, not sharing the ball.
It did, but at the same time, like, who else do you have in this certain instance? You know what I mean? Like Jared Butler missed a shot. Brissett missed a shot. You're right. Quentin could have passed the ball, but at that particular point, here's a guy with 46 points, a guy with 8 threes. You're looking at it and you're saying to yourself, like, you know what? We got to follow you. We got to follow you. But yeah, I mean, you do have a point. Like, he was 2 for 5. He had 2 fouls. He just was jacking it. Now, the difference is he was gassed. You could tell he was tired.
Yeah.
He didn't have anything. I mean, we're talking about this is the second day of a back-to-back, and he played 43 minutes. So, yeah, he didn't have it at all.
And that's what came to my mind as soon as the 76ers went into overtime, or I should say the Rockets really forced overtime, was, oh boy, this team's already shorthanded. We already know what they have, as you alluded to in the beginning of the show. And it's no disrespect to these guys, but it's really Quentin Grimes, Justin Edwards, and a lot of G Leaguers on the court for the Philadelphia 76ers. How much do they have left in the tank to beat a Jalen Green and a Jabari Smith and the Houston Rockets as well? There just wasn't a lot left in the tank for this Philadelphia 76ers team. I mean, the Rockets as well. I mean, I don't want to tip my cap to the Rockets because we're talking about the Philadelphia 76ers that gave them a run for their money, but they did match their largest comeback in franchise history. So there goes that as well. Once again, they're a team that's really competing in the Western Conference. They outscored the Sixers 14-6 in overtime. But I think that overtime stretch, yes, Keith, the 76ers could have won. But at the same time, I think the Rockets were just showing the team that was a little bit more of a unit, had a little bit more chemistry, that plays a little bit together, and just was the better team at the end of the night.
Yeah, but you know what? I also felt like if they went to overtime, the Sixers were going to lose it. Because as they got closer, now the Sixers kept weathering the storm, right?
Yeah.
But as it got closer to overtime, and especially when they scored the first 3 points of the OT, Sagoon, I kind of knew that the game was over, because here's the thing. That was the first time that they led all of the entire game.
Yep.
And you look at it, and the 76ers kept weathering the storm. We're talking about an all-star center. We're talking about a couple lottery picks that they had. We're talking about, some agitators there. And I felt like the Sixers did everything they could to win the game, and they had all these opportunities, and they exhausted all of them. And that's why I felt like it was like Fred Van Vliet was ejected. Then, Torrey Eason was ejected, right? So Jalen Green gets the technical foul. So you're looking at it and you're saying to yourself, we're like, yo, they're down 2 starters and you guys are doing everything. And once they got that lead in overtime, I just knew that it was going to be over, because, we're thinking about guys, let's be real, G Leaguers. And I hate to be saying that way, because, Brissett, a couple other guys, they all played in the NBA, right? There's 3 of those dudes were going through G Leaguers were NBA players. But at the same time, it's kind of like they were into the bench guys while these guys are starters.
And they gave it all they got to. And once again, I know a lot of people you see on your timeline, why are they winning this game? Why are they trying to win? And listen, I get it, where fans outside are coming from and you want a good pick and all those things. I understand that. But these are young guys, or some of these guys that have been in the NBA that are now in the G League that are trying to make their way back, that are just trying to prove themselves at the end of the day. And this is their short time to be able to do that at the end of this Philadelphia 76ers season. So it was a good loss, you could say. It was an exciting game, a fun game for the 76ers, which we haven't seen in quite some time. Quentin Grimes goes off for 46 points, and we have so much more to talk about in this episode of Locked On 76ers. So don't go anywhere. We're going to keep breaking it down in the overtime loss for Philadelphia. First, we have to tell you about Hungryroot. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've had this ongoing problem. I just don't have the time. And I know this can happen to everybody, no matter what you have to do. You just feel like you don't have the time to go to the store and being able to pick out everything you need. And sometimes you say you want to go in, it takes 10 minutes, and it always does take longer than that. Between work life and trying to eat healthier, I was constantly feeling stressed out. I go to the grocery store, buy things that I didn't need, and then end up with no time to actually cook. And sticking to my health goals, that was a struggle too. But everything changed when I discovered Hungryroot. Honestly, it's been a game changer. It's the easiest way to eat healthy without all the stress. With Hungryroot, it's like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. They take care of my grocery shopping, recommending meals and groceries based on my taste and health goals as well. From anti-inflammatory to high protein and gluten-free options. And the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. I'm talking quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, all delivered straight to my door. It's been a huge time saver and has made healthy eating so much simpler. You're going to love Hungryroot as much as I do. For a limited time offer, get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA. Make sure you don't miss out. And every check your bank account and wonder, where did my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Surprising insights. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and I save more, all in one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stretch. Take control of your financials with Monarch Money. Use code LockedOnNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LockedOnNBA for half off your first year. So make sure you go check it out today. Keith, I just got to say, how about Quentin Grimes? He has been so much fun to watch. Career high, 46 points. He's breaking Sixers franchise records last night. I mean, he's a really good basketball player, and the Sixers, to me, got him a little bit too late. I think he would have been fun and jumped with that unit earlier on this season. It doesn't pan out that way, but he is fun to watch out there.
Yeah, he is. He is exciting to watch. And, I was talking to him afterwards about free agency and everything like that because, it's funny. Like in Dallas, I was talking to people before the game, like, how come Quentin didn't really work out here? Like, well, what's the deal? And they were like, well, the Mavs didn't think that they would be able to afford him. They felt like that a team was going to come out there and throw some money at him, and they didn't think that they were going to be able to afford him. And you look at it now and you say to yourself, is the same thing going to happen to the Sixers now? You know what I mean? Because here's a guy that's been phenomenal. And, what was this, his fourth game with over 30 points, Yeah. So, you look at that. And so, he's been a great guy. And now you look at it, his mix with the Sixers, and you just want to see how they're going to utilize him moving forward. But one thing he said is, and they all say this, so he says, I'm really excited about the Sixers, and this is a place that I want to be.
And I think when you look at the future, we consistently talk about the future of this team, right? Looking into next year, because this season really is said and done. And what you're relying on and looking at right now is where the 76ers are going to end up in terms of lottery if they're the sixth worst team in the NBA when the season is all said and done. But he's somebody that I think would gel really, really well with the Tyrese Maxeys. Joel Embiid. We'll see what goes on with Paul George as well. In addition to Jaron McCain, he could be a starter in that lineup. He could come off the bench as a sixth man. I think he could be in that starting rotation. This is something we talked about last week as well. If you're the 76ers, you got to look at this guy and say he is a key piece that you really haven't had, and maybe you've traded those assets away. You trade away a Kayla Martin, you trade away KJ Martin, and Quentin Grimes, to me, is somebody the 76ers have to hang on tight to, Keith, because I think that he can be a difference maker. Now, will he do this with a Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid? I don't know, but it could help. It could definitely help to have another guy that can score, whether that's in the starting rotation or coming off the bench, alongside Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. That doesn't have to be a superstar.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we have to, like, I have to be honest, like right now, he is showing flashes of what he can do with the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what is it going to be like when they have other people around? Right. Because we also know that Jared McCain is coming back. You know, PG, if he's not traded, he'll be back. You know, then what about Kelly Oubre? Is a lot of different guys, and it's going to be so. Whereas, you know, right now it's set up for him. I mean, even before, like Joel, even when PG was playing, when Maxey was playing, you know, he was still set up to be a guy to get buckets. What is it going to be like when they have their full complement of players? Like when McCain comes back, when Embiid comes back. So to me, that's something to pay attention to. Like, what role is he going to have? Because yes, at times against the Knicks, while he was with the Knicks, they let him go out there and eat. But then there was other times when they didn't. You know, Detroit, he didn't do much. You know, in Dallas, he was a great spot up shooter. So my just question mark is, I'm amazed by what he's doing, but he's also getting more shots and has more freedom with the Sixers team than he has had anywhere else. And I think that he's going to lose some of that freedom when Joel comes back.
And I don't want to say it's easy to put up these numbers that he's putting up on a team like this, but it definitely is easier than it would be having Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey in your lineup, even a Jared McCain as well, who we saw in the beginning of the season being able to get those buckets with a Tyrese Maxey and a Joel Embiid in the lineup. So it is going to be interesting, but I do think for the 76ers, he's showing you exactly what you need him to show you. Once again, 46 points, 8 for 13 from the charity stripe, 8 for 14 from beyond, 15 for 27 from the field as well. In addition to that, 4 assists and 13 rebounds. Once again, these numbers coming in the extra time as well, but he has been a really big bright spot for the Philadelphia 76ers. And when you want to look at bright spots for this team that has not been so bright this season, Quentin Grimes is definitely one of those. So thank you, Dallas, because he has been just really fun to watch with this team, and he has been a huge bright spot. Not only that, I think him feeding off the younger players, feeding off these G Leaguers as well, it's kind of putting into place where he's saying, yeah, this team is looking for maybe a lottery pick and looking to quote-unquote tank, but Quentin Grimes is saying, let's go, guys. We have something to prove. Let's all play together and try to go out there and beat the Houston Rockets, because he was playing like that last night.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he was. I mean, he was. You know, the one thing, though, I mean, you know, and I talked about it before, is, you know, we look at him and, you know, and everybody's making a big deal out of it that, you know, he scored more 30-point games than Paul George, right? But I still don't think that his role is more vital than what Paul George brings, right? If Paul George is healthy. And if, like, see, here's the thing with Paul. We'll find out this about Paul. We'll find out if Paul George is shot, if he comes back next year, or if he was just injured this year, right? So meaning, like, if PG can't go, then we'll know, like, next year it wasn't the injuries. We just know that Father Time has caught up with him. But I also feel like that, you know, Quentin Grimes is in a better situation from a standpoint of where he hasn't been asked to stand in the corner. You know what I
Right.
mean? He's been asked to be a attack. So when we break it down and everybody's like, oh, he scored more than this than PG, well, their roles were different. Like before, we got to realize when PG was balling, it was before Embiid came back. It was when PG had the ball in his hands, not Maxey. But then once Embiid came back, it was like PG was like off in the corner. Now, I'm not going to excuse PG against the Brooklyn Nets. Now, when he had those 2 points, right? And there were some other games where he just looked bad. But, early on when he was baking, it was when he had the ball. And Quentin Grimes has had the ball lately. So, that led to that. But, yeah, I don't want, because a lot of people are like, oh, get rid of PG. Nah, like PG can do certain things that Quentin can't do. You know what I mean? At this particular time. But Quentin does look better offensively. But I just want to see, is it because of PG's injured or if he's shot? And then also Quentin's getting more opportunities because he's not playing with, at this particular time, Embiid nor Tyrese Maxey.
Completely different scene when those guys are on the floor. We'll continue to talk about Paul George and the news that came out yesterday and just kind of how that wraps up in terms of the guys like Quentin Grimes and going forward for the 76ers. So we will touch on that on the other side right here on Locked On 76ers. And we do have to tell you about PrizePicks as basketball season is heating up, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for your daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's easy to use, available in over 30 states, and lets you mix and match projections across different sports as well. Building lineups. This week, I'm selecting Luka Doncic for more than 25 points and Jason Tatum for more than 8 rebounds. Quick and easy. PrizePicks makes it simple. You can set your lineup in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged all game long. Fast payouts. When you win, your money hits your account in as little as 15 minutes, no waiting around. And Taco Tuesday deals. Every Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25%, giving even more value to your lineup. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, make sure you run your game. And we have to show you our bracket breakdown as well.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
So make sure you go check that out today, and we'll continue here in just a moment on Locked On 76ers. All right, so the Paul George news, we knew this was happening, Keith. He's shut down for the rest of the season. I'm not surprised by this. And what you really brought up in the last segment really can lead us to this segment as well. It was a really, really good point. All you see after this is trade Paul George, get rid of the guy. He's no good. He's not healthy anymore. And I do see where people are saying that, but I also don't at the same time, because the continuation happens when James Harden wasn't performing well, right? Everybody was saying the same thing, and now he's playing decent. It's 2 different situations, but at the same time, your big fella, the former MVP, the guy that everybody wants to back on and go to the playoffs with and win a championship with, was also hurt. So you didn't get to see anybody really healthy besides Tyrese Maxey this whole season. I think it's exactly what the 76ers needed to do. And I'm curious on your thoughts, Keith. Where are you at with Paul George? Because you alluded to it a little bit before, but let's break it down even more, because I think he still has a little bit more to give with the Sixers team. I know Sixers fans aren't going to be happy about that one.
Yeah, you know what? It's crazy. Like, I kind of think trading Paul George might be best for both parties. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, I feel like it's tough to say, but I feel like this was a year where, Paul looked bad, a lot of it because of scheme, because of role, right? And I felt like, and when he had bad games, it was magnified. But then again, you look at it, you talked about Tobias Harris. Before Paul George came, Tobias Harris, some people said had the worst contract in NBA in Sixers history, right?
Yep.
So now they're saying the same thing about Paul George. Some people said that James Harden was shot and the 76ers were right for not paying him that money. They said Al Horford was shot too, right? So the common denominator is all these guys played with Joel Embiid, they played with other players, and they just couldn't gel with them. So from what I saw, I didn't see a good combination between PG and Joel at all. Like if you looked at it, PG mostly struggled when Joel was on the floor. So now if they can work that out, okay, sure.
By all means, yeah, right.
By all means. But I don't know if you're trying to pay this guy that much money for him to be a third option, all right? Or a two-way player. Like, yeah, we want you to defend, we want you to do all these other things. So the problem is, though, you have to have a team, and it's just one, but a team that's going to believe that this guy can still get it done. That's the problem, right? I think there are one or two, but if not, Nick Nurse is going to have to work overtime, triple time to try to get this guy more involved.
And it's interesting too, because I see it both ways where you say, okay, his productivity isn't there. And if you keep him on the Sixers and it doesn't work out again, then you're looking at Joel Embiid, who really, in my eyes, does not have a lot of time left. I know in the beginning of the year, he said, I have 8 years left in the NBA. I give him maybe 2, maybe 1, maybe this season coming up, depending on how he reacts after what happens in this offseason here. But I think you look at it in the flip side of, as you just alluded to, Tobias Harris has more 35-point games as a 76er than Paul George does. Everybody was complaining about him. Now, granted, his contract, he did not deserve a max contract, but I think Tobias Harris might have fit better on this team than Paul George did this year, basically how everything was constructed. You look at James Harden, now he's cooking over with the Clippers. You look at Al Horford too. So I think the Sixers are in a really tough situation here, because if Paul George is cooked, if he's not healthy and you keep him, it's going to be really, really bad again for the 76ers next season. But what happens if you give him up, and then what continues to happen is what's happened in the past with other players. So I think the Sixers are in a weird spot here, Keith. And once again, it circulates around Joel Embiid. And I think that's the common denominator, as you alluded to, and almost the biggest problem / solution too, because you're trying to work this guy around Joel Embiid when you saw a season ago that it really did not work. It was a small sample size, but every time it was out there, it did not work. So that's a tough solution to kind of come around to and try it again after both guys are coming off injuries.
Yeah, I agree. That's going to be the tough thing, but that's why. And then also, how does Paul George want to stay here? Because, Philly is a tough place to play. We're going to be real. It's a tough place to play. And, heck, he went to the wrestling
WrestleMania,
WrestleMania got booed, right?
Yeah, that was crazy.
It's just, it's one of those things where, Philly, we love it. We're from the area, but it's not for everyone. Just not.
It's not. So we'll see. That news, this is going to be a really interesting offseason for the Philadelphia 76ers. That's what I will say. But for the meantime, the 76ers, they were exciting last night. They were fun to watch. And this is a young core, a young team that you're seeing a lot of two-way guys, some Blue Coats players that will be playing in Wilmington as well, and Quentin Grimes going off once again. He has a career high 46 points, but the 76ers, they do fall in a game they could have won, but the Rockets, locking in, showing they're the better team once again in that Western Conference. This was also a big win for them too, Keith, before we send things off, because right now the Thunder, it looks like they're going to lock up that number 1 seed in the Western Conference, but the Rockets winning this game puts them just a half a game above the Denver Nuggets at 44 wins, and Denver with 43 as well. So it wasn't only the 76ers falling in that game last night. It's also the Rockets trying to keep that 2 spot in the Western Conference as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good one for them, and they won 7 in a row. Um, the one thing is they have to do better in regards to playing against struggling teams. Do you know, like their record against below 500 teams isn't as good as you think it should be, and they lost to the Brooklyn Nets. Now we know the Sixers lost to them twice, but at the same time, the Sixers don't have the second best record in the West either, right? So, it's a team that it was a big win for them, a good win for them. But to me, it's like they got to do better. Like you can't continue to play down to your level of competition. You're a young team. You need to start running people out the gym, take advantage of mismatches, and get it done. You know what I mean? So that's what they need to do.
Yeah, in my mind, looking at this matchup on paper, it should not have been close at all. I said, oh boy, it's going to be a boat race of a night for the 76ers, but they competed. So if anything, you're looking at the Rockets of what do they got to do better to try and stay in that spot and get hot and continue to get wins going into that playoff picture. The 76ers, though, they did compete once again. Quentin Grimes, another big night. They fall in overtime, 144 to 137. 76ers up next. They have the Thunder tomorrow at 8 p.m. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we'll see you guys next time.